Keywords get sent to all the news outlets. They're dropping things like QAnon when they know it's going to elicit a emotional response.
Yeah.
Right. Just like, remember, use the, I don't mean to use the term joke, but after 9/11, right, it was this common thing of like, hey, if you want to get people inside, just mention on it. I mean, even the Simpsons did a thing on it, and Family Guy, like, just say 9/11, and everyone was like, yeah, all you had to do
Hillary Clinton invoked 9/11 several times in her campaign. With the information being available and the loss of control of that information, and I'm going to use Bud Light as an example. I'm going to use Target as an example, because once people got that information and they processed it for themselves, Target, I'll use that as a better example than Bud Light. Once people actually were like, oh, wait, like, I can just go into Target and see for myself and film it, right? Just like this whole sweating people out of the movie theater, stuff like that. People are like, oh, okay, I can document this. It's not just anecdotal experience. It's like, well, here's video footage, and here's the swimsuit. Here's whatever it is.
Right.
And, like, you had the CEO of Bud Light, or of Anheuser-Busch. You had, like, board members of, like, Target, going on all the major channels trying to talk themselves out of this predicament.
And people are seeing it with their own eyes.
And people are like, it doesn't matter if this guy, like, says, Bud Light's, always been like an all-inclusive drink. Like, it doesn't matter that Target's always been like the best place to get blah, 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 blah. And I believe as people now understand that they can go get information, and, when we try to use the information to turn people on each other through identity, like, if you don't agree with this, you're QAnon, you're racist, you're a snowflake, when you try to, like, impose yours through that, and people then have an option to refute it or to substantiate it, societies can become much healthier.
Right.
Because
you who are trying to bully or push a narrative are losing your power, because they can go find themselves. Right. Yeah. Great thing, right? This song from last week, right, jumped at the top of the charts in iTunes download. They said there's probably people that never listened to country music that were downloading this song because they heard about it. they were like, oh, that's a song that promotes lynching and racism and all that stuff. And they went and listened to it and or watched the video and were like, that's not in it at all. This dude is just singing a song about small town values, and that they're not going to put up with you spitting in a cop's face or burning the flag or rioting or burning their stores down. That's just not, small town America just doesn't put up with that. And that thing shot in 24 hours to the top of the charts in downloads, because they went, that's not what it says at all. They're like, that doesn't promote this at all.
Right.
You know?
But, from a political science standpoint, larger population centers tend to be like democratic.
Yes, they do. I mean,
Uh,
the
more
stats are the
sparsely
stats. Look at Chicago, New York, LA, San Francisco, Baltimore.
more sparsely populated areas tend to be more conservative.
Yep.
And so it's like this song, as much as people want to dispute it, what it really is it's identifying the difference in population.
And yeah.
You like when you have too many people together, people become mob mentality and they become afraid.
Well, if you don't have rule of law and you have bail reform and all that, you're not holding people accountable.
Well, I mean, I'll use the subway as an example. Like you put a bunch of people on a subway, a guy comes in, starts disrespecting a woman, robbing another passenger, something like that. In the larger population centers, people tend to not want to get involved because they feel, because there's so many people around them, that they are anonymous, that they won't be held to account, and no one will be like, well, Toby was on the train. Toby didn't, defend her honor. Troy didn't do this. Troy didn't stop the robbing, right? Well, like you get into a smaller population center, and man, there's only a couple of ATMs. Like I loved Korea as a soldier in Korea, because man, if someone did you dirty, or like some punk ass little private did something like disrespectful, and he had to go to the ATM because there was only one. Like he had to go to the one PX.
Yeah.
Like he had to go to the one chow hall.
Well,
and it's like,
in a small town, whether in America,
and you can't hide. And that's the thing, is when you can't hide in public and you're not anonymous, right? And all of a sudden there's only 3 people on that train when it goes to get robbed, and you don't do something about it. Well, it shows your lack of character.
That's where that Marine stands out, where that Marine was on a train, was on a subway full, and he stepped up.
And so like this song is purely an anthem to accountability.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're either like, blindly following, and taking advantage and hiding in anonymity, or, in a small town, like you're going to end up in Safeway trying to buy produce next to the guy that you did a hit and run on. Like the little girl that you catcalled. Well, her dad's thumping the water. Her dad's like checking the watermelons next to you, and he's gonna be like, "Hey, son, like my daughter's."
And that could be small town America or Canada or anywhere.
It doesn't matter where you're at. It's when you can't hide, and that's like, so. Oh well, we don't want the truth to be that, because from the political science aspect of it, now we're getting into the, if we're at 30,000 feet, we're going to start talking about the electoral college. We're going to start talking about how, like, well, all the population, the popular votes around these little areas, well, they should decide about the entire area. People don't want to, like, they don't want to lose that power, because when they realize it's the people where the rubber meets the road that make the energy to provide you with all the things you have, the clothing that you have, the food that's in your belly, the materials that get exported to another side of the world so they can come back as your like little toy, like all those things. Like when you have to face your accountability for your actions and you lose your anonymity, like people don't like it. And so you're like, how do I do it? Well, I got to discredit their character. I'm going to call them racist. And Jason Aldean, right? Where he's a Georgia guy, right?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
small town Georgia.
Southern Georgia. Yeah.
Yeah, last time I checked, Southern Georgia, if we were going to look at demographics, um, Caucasian isn't the predominant race. Like so to like say that like he's like from some kind of racist town. I'm trying to here. I'll Google it really fast where he's from, but
No,
I
I mean,
guarantee, I guarantee he's like
well,
from
the
from some
left,
town.
right. He's from a
It's like,
small
and
town,
it's like, oh, so his small town is racist. It's probably like
and
racist towards him.
the View and the left and all them, they wanted to say that he was promoting. I was like, when you watch the video, which apparently was the trigger event that brought us to the news, if it wasn't for them trying to hide something else, well, he just showed footage, and as he even said, I didn't doctor it. It was all news footage. It was news footage of riots and Antifa and people screaming in cops' faces and all stuff. He didn't produce that. They didn't get actors and make it and recreate it. It was actual news footage. That's all he did. He didn't promote violence. He just showed what this country's been going through for the last 3 years.
Documentation, yeah.
Yeah. And
see, like I know we got to go in a second, but the other thing I want to touch on is intelligence and where you get it from, right? And I think, we will always have people that believe the View is quality programming.
I hope it's not people who watch this show, but yeah.
Well, I mean, if it is, it is.
Maybe we'll enlighten them
But
what real quality programming is.
but if you want facts, if you want knowledge, if you want good, reliable information, we'll seek it from an expert. Like, there's a bazillion pundits out there that are actually qualified.
Right.
I would love to hear the qualifications of any member of the View panel. Like, and that's why, like, I always chuckle when, and it doesn't matter what side of the aisle goes on there.
Right.
Because they show their ass. Like, they say dumbass things. But like when they're talking with someone,
I mean, they show their ass worse than me and you did when we first started this show.
Oh yeah. Oh, he's just a great gentleman out of, is it South Carolina? Or North Carolina? He's a senator.
Tim Scott?
Yeah.
South Carolina.
Like,
yeah.
He like eviscerated them. Like eviscerate. He said one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard, where they were like, well, you're not the norm. They called him not the norm, right?
Because he was a black conservative.
Yeah, and he was like, what do you mean I'm not the norm? Like and he eviscerated, I want to say it was Whoopi Goldberg. He eviscerated her with like, so that's the most racist thing you could say to me. You're basically saying, by virtue of the fact that I was born black and was raised by a single mom, or what, his whatever his situation was, that I'm not capable of excelling or being successful in any way, that I'm not the norm. Like, if that's the message that we're sending our youth, regardless of color, we will never witness exceptionalism. But man, like, we could be so much better with a slightly higher level of mediocrity.
Right.
If we just inspired our youth just a little bit more, and like, we didn't tell them,
and not say things like, if you don't vote for me, you're not black.
Right. Or like, and anytime, like, Senator Cruz or Tulsi Gabbard. Oh man, I have a political crush on that girl. Like, she's a brilliant mind. Like, I don't agree with all her policies.
Right.
However, she's eloquent, she's intelligent, she can defend her position. And that's what I tell, like, my kids all the time. Like, my youngest, she's going to be a political force. Like, watch out, world. Like, she's going to fire up the legal field, and she's definitely going to end up in politics. And I tell her all the time, I'm like, honey, like, it's you can believe whatever you want as long as you can defend it. Your policies or your position and your standpoint on any platform, on any issue, you can have that. That's the beauty of being free. That's the beauty of being here in America, as long as you can defend it. When you can't defend your position, you don't have one.
Right. That's why a lot of people, and a
and
lot of
it's so
people.
silly. It's like
I mean, that's that civil discussion, right? That's a civility where some people want to shut you down and be like, no, why don't you like so and so? Because I just don't like them, or where'd you get this info? And they just, sadly, a lot of time it is on the left. I'm not saying always, where you try to present facts and they shut down or they get mad or they just cuss you out. They can't defend their position. Well, why do you think he's racist? Why do you think he's this or she's that or whatever? And they just because they were told that they can't defend it.
No, if you can't defend your position, you don't have one. And that's as
Right.
true literally as it is figuratively. Like, if you can't defend that hill, it's not yours.
Right. Right.
Like,
Exactly.
like,
Yeah. But no,
if
so I
you,
mean, the whole purpose of tonight, right? We've been going over an hour, was to talk about the corruption, but we
whatever.
haven't talked in so long, and there's so much stuff to talk about. It was great catching up, but honestly, I mean, I guess what saddens me is that when we've looked at, we have been that beacon of light on the hill for this world for so many years. Where I'm not saying we were perfect. We definitely are still trying to figure it out. But this is absolutely the greatest country in the world, because if we were so racist and we were so bad, all these people wouldn't be trying to get here all the time. They come over by the thousands, so they must be doing something right. I'll just use that as the one litmus test to make that statement. But for us to have been that for so long, for us to have sent people over to observe other elections, for us to have sent people over to free other countries and bring democracy and bring the end to dictatorship and to squash corruption and give people a free, fair, democratic chance to live a life and have a good life, right? Whether, no matter how they end up, what their government turns into or whatever, to now be at the highest levels of this country, to have the same disgusting levels of corruption that some of the worst countries we see, that we saw, the stuff we would see Gaddafi do, and the things that we would see other countries in the Middle East or in Africa would do, where they would take these huge bribes, take money out of and food out of the impoverished people's mouths to fatten their own wallets. Now you have people that are taking and cheating and living by the second realm of justice, not being held accountable, not following the basic tenets of the U.S. Constitution. We have these documents put in place that apply to everybody. And you have this one little class that just happens to be at the top levels of the government who it doesn't apply to, where it applies to everyone else and then some. And they're not being held accountable because of their last name or who they are, is turning us into the same country that this country was formed out of. Be honest, right? It's practically turning it into a monarchy where the kings and the royals got to live their own way and do whatever they want and piss on the peasants and tax people however they wanted and take away their rights and censor them and all that stuff. That's how this country was born. That's exactly what we're back into right now. We have a Department of Justice. We have the major departments of the government that are all in lock and step with the executive branch, the monarchy of this country.
I mean, like, you're going to have a hard time convincing somebody that Director Ray is not the sheriff of Nottingham. Like, you're really going to have a hard time doing that. The good news is, I think we're on the precipice of a wonderful opportunity for people to, take stock in what is actually of value. And I think that, like, people are going to start putting it together. I think this election cycle that's coming up, I don't look forward to it because
you won't be seeing all the ads. So
it's going to be a little bit brutal.
Yeah.
But I think, the faith of the people has been shaken, and it's going to be hard to restore that. And it doesn't matter what party you're on. Like I think, you know, people now that the truth is out there, it's going to be hard to kind of hide certain things. But man, I really I think it's going to be good. And just like a few years ago they made movies about McCarthyism, like they're they're going to make movies about COVIDisms. They're going to make movies about Bidenisms, Trumpisms. There, there's going to be an amazing political thriller made about trying to impeach the former president, and there's probably going to be an amazing political thriller made about uh, impeaching the current president. And and that's the thing is we've desensitized and we've normalized a lot of behaviors. We talked about this earlier. And do I believe that they're going to impeach the current president? No, I don't.
You know
Do I think?
why? You know my opinion is why? Because they don't want number
Well,
two. That's how bad she
right.
is. That's why they haven't
Yeah, but
invoked the 25th Amendment. I'm guarantee you the reason they haven't done it is because they
yeah.
don't want
Well,
her.
I mean, you know, I think she can be controlled for a short period of time, but like it's just people know that they're not going to be held to account. Um, you know, everyone like show me your tax returns, right? Show me your tax returns. Show me your tax returns, Donald. Where are your tax returns, Donald? I'll show you my tax returns. I bet they didn't have that 10 fucking million on it.
Nope, I bet they didn't.
I bet it did. So it's like,
10% for
oh,
the big guy didn't have that
yeah,
on there. Right.
no,
It's
no. So,
and look, they set the narrative, they set their talking points before he ever got elected. Crazy old
yeah,
Uncle Joe,
no,
kind old Uncle Joe. They knew where this was heading, so they started setting this stereotype of it's just old Uncle Joe. Just he that means no harm. He just sniffs up onto little girls, and it means
he can't
nothing.
even walk up. He can't even walk across the stage or up a flight of stairs. Or
No.
I know he like it was a big thing on the news here the other day where he was talking maybe about Putin, and like he was just saying gibberish.
Oh yeah,
And I'm not watching this on an American channel. I'm watching it on an international channel. And they're straight up laughing at him,
dude.
like internationally. And they're like
Australia,
laughing.
Australia's got these journalists that just rip it. It's like they made it a segment in Australian news. They just rip into him.
Yeah, I mean I mean if you can't defend your position, you don't have one.
He gave Mayor
But
Pete. He gave Mayor Pete the best screw up of his last name. He called him Booty Juice. It was friggin'
did he really?
hilarious. He called his
No.
Secretary Pete Booty Juice like that. Oh yeah,
Like
it's
I'm not
he
here to
did the
judge.
best.
I'm not here to
Yeah,
judge, like maybe
yeah.
that's an inside thing,
It
like
could be. I mean, there could be something
so he
to
was
it, but
showing
yeah.
she was showing his affection.
But
The
it is interesting. I mean, we need to wrap up. But I mean, you're down in a country that is kind of known for corruption, down for the local level
100%
to the top, right? It's just the way
all
it
the
is.
way.
And you know what everyone says in the US? They're like, "Oh, that's just the way it is, man. That's Mexico, right? That's the way it is, or that's the way this country is." And that's what's got me bugged. Is like, but no one's ever looked at us ever that I've been alive in the 54 years and said, "That's just the US. That's the way it is." You know what they say about the US? What do they say? Oh, they love their guns and they love barbecue and they love country music and big trucks, and they have all these different stereotypical images of the U.S.
Yeah.
Usually has to do with guns, right? But it's
Or
not
drugs. Yeah.
corruption or drugs. It's not corruption, and that's just
No,
what's so sad.
but we're gonna wrap, but I'm gonna leave you on this. Like I walked very tall for many years around the world, and not just because I had a vest on and I had, like some training. I walked tall because I knew I was part of the greatest nation on the planet and possibly the greatest time in human history, where good outweighed evil, and good men and women of character put themselves by volunteering, put themselves in front of evil.
Right.
I can tell you right now, the status of the United States is not that, And I can tell you simply how I can quantify it, and that's in the exchange rate. The international economy does not believe the United States is either strong or a leader anymore. And the dollar's lost 25% of its value. I deal with it every day in business. And, it's like every day that it goes down a point, I'm like that's another 50 million people that no longer believe America is a great place. And
Right.
it's sad, but all right, let's get out of
All right,
here.
man. Yeah, we'll let you go. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Toby, great to see you again, man. It's been too long. We got to try to catch up when we can more, but we got so many more things to talk about. But a lot of guests we're working on coming up here. We've got a couple actually working on for next week, so everyone stay tuned. Toby, good to see you. This worked out pretty well. This new platform.
Yeah,
I think we'll give
I'm
it a
down.
run here, see how it works. But thank you, everyone, and everyone have a good night. Make sure you check us out, stewandthenunn.com. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.